The large room was quiet. Too quiet. Jack Morrison sat with the other humans and looked around. He had never seen so many different aliens in one place before. Some had wings. Some had scales. Some looked like they were made of crystal. All of them were watching the humans with careful eyes. This was the Galactic Council, the most important group in the known universe. Earth had only discovered faster than light travel 6 months ago. Now they were here, sitting with species that had traveled the stars for thousands of years. Jack thought it should be exciting. Instead, it felt wrong. They were not invited. They were summoned. There was a difference. An old alien stepped forward. He was called Kalvar. He belonged to a race called the Viridians. He had 6 eyes and thin wings that looked like glass. The room became even more quiet when he began to speak. His voice filled the space without being loud. Technology made sure everyone understood his words in their own language. Kalvar looked directly at the humans. His 6 eyes seemed to see through them. He spoke slowly, like he was telling them something very important. He said the humans were dangerous, not because they were strong, but because of what they would become if anyone attacked them first. He said he had seen the future. He said if anyone struck the humans first, they would never stop fighting back. Never. Jack felt confused. Was this a warning, a threat? He looked at Ambassador Chen Wei. She was the oldest person in their group. She had spent her whole life working to bring peace on Earth. She had been chosen to speak for all humans. Her face was calm, but Jack could see worry in her eyes. Chen Wei stood up carefully. She spoke with respect. She told the council that humans came in peace. They did not want war. They wanted to learn. They wanted to trade. They wanted friends among the stars. Her words were simple and honest. Then a large alien stood up. He was huge. His skin looked like thick leather. He had yellow eyes that looked cold and mean. This was Vortigern. He was from a race called the Thraken. The Thraken had the biggest army in the galaxy. Everyone feared them. Vortigern did not try to hide his hate for the humans. Vortigern said the humans were liars. He said they had been fighting wars on Earth for their whole history. He said humans had used terrible weapons on each other. Nuclear bombs, diseases. They had killed millions of their own kind. Why should anyone believe they wanted peace now? His voice was full of anger and disgust. Jack wanted to argue. He wanted to defend his people. But Chen Wei raised her hand gently. She answered Vortigern with the same calm voice. Yes, she said. Humans had a dark past. They had done terrible things to each other. But they had learned. They had nearly destroyed themselves. That was why they finally came together. They learned that working together was the only way to survive. That hard lesson taught them wisdom. Kalvar spoke again. He looked at Vortigern. His old voice carried a warning. He told Vortigern not to be foolish. The prophet said humans were survivors. They had lived through ice ages. They had survived plagues that killed half their people. They had survived wars that almost made their planet unlivable. Each time they came back stronger. He said humans were like insects that learned to think. Weak alone but unstoppable together. The room exploded with noise. Aliens were arguing. Some seemed angry. Others seemed worried. Jack noticed that not everyone was against the humans. A being made of crystal spoke up. Her name was Thesara. She was from a race called the Lyrians. She said her people had studied human history. Humans had turned wolves into pets. They had learned to split atoms. They had reached their moon using computers less powerful than their phones. This was not a species to take lightly, but Vortigern did not care. He stared at Jack with his cold yellow eyes. He said perhaps they needed a test. If humans were really as strong as the prophet said, they would survive. If not, the galaxy would be rid of a danger before it grew. His words were clear. He was talking about war. Jack stood up. His military training made him speak without thinking. His voice was hard and clear. He asked if this was a declaration of war. The room went silent. Even the arguing stopped. Everyone stared at the human soldier who dared to challenge the mighty Thraken commander. Chen Wei put her hand on Jack's arm. But she did not tell him to be quiet. She let the question hang in the air. It was a good question. Everyone needed to hear the answer. Vortigern leaned forward. His massive body looked even bigger when he moved. He said yes, it was a test. His forces would attack one human colony, just one. If the humans surrendered right away, he would be kind. If they fought and lost, Everyone would know they were not a real threat. And if they fought and won, then maybe they earned a place in the galaxy. He made it sound reasonable, like he was doing them a favor. Kelvar's voice cut through the room. He sounded sad and angry at the same time. He called Vortigern a fool. He said the Thraken commander did not understand. It was not about winning or losing one battle. It was about what would happen after. If the Thraken struck first, they would teach humans that the galaxy was dangerous. They would give humans a reason to fight. And humans with a reason were the most dangerous thing in the universe. Jack looked at Kate Sullivan. She was the other military officer in their group. Her green eyes showed the same shock he felt. Lieutenant Chen Wei looked at both of them, then back at the council. Her face was serious. She told them that if the Thraken chose war, humans would defend themselves. But she said they would rather have friends than enemies. The choice was Vortigern's to make. Vortigern laughed. It was an ugly sound, like rocks grinding together. He said they would see what humans were really made of. His fleet would leave in 1 hour. They would attack the human colony on New Terra first. He told the humans to prepare themselves. Then he turned and walked away. Many of the other aliens followed him, arguing as they went. The council meeting fell apart. Everyone was talking at once. Some were angry, some were scared. In the chaos, Kalvar walked over to the human group. His old eyes looked sad. He said he was sorry. He had tried to warn them. He had tried to prevent this. But the Thraken were too proud. Pride made even the strong become stupid. He said what came next would change the whole galaxy. Jack looked at the old prophet. He asked what Kalvar had seen in his visions. What would happen? The ancient being's wings trembled. He said he saw the Thraken Empire burning. He saw human ships in places where ships should not be able to go. He saw plans that made no sense somehow work. But most of all, he saw the look in human eyes. Once humans decided something must be done, they simply did not stop. That was both their greatest strength and what made them terrifying. The prophet started to leave. Then he stopped and turned back. He asked Jack to tell the other humans something. When the war was over, when the Thraken realized their mistake, he wanted the humans to show mercy. Not for the Thraken, for themselves. He told them not to become what others feared. He wanted them to prove that humans could be kind in victory, just as they were strong in battle. After Kalvar left, the 3 humans stood together. Kate spoke first. Her voice was quiet but worried. She said New Terra had 40,000 colonists, farmers, scientists, families with children. They did not have much military protection. They were peaceful people just trying to build new lives. Ambassador Chen's face became hard. She looked older suddenly, tired but determined. She told Jack that she was putting him in charge of all military forces near New Terra. He had full authority. He should do whatever was needed to protect their people. Whatever it took, Jack nodded. His mind was already working, already planning, already thinking about how to fight an enemy with better weapons, more ships, and centuries of experience. As they left the council chamber, he could not stop thinking about the prophet's words. Strike first and they will never stop. The Thraken were about to learn why that was true. They were about to learn what humans became when someone threatened their families. And that lesson, Jack thought, was going to be written in fire and blood across the stars. The ship called Valkyrie moved through space toward New Terra. Jack Morrison stood on the bridge and watched the displays. His small fleet had 7 ships. Only 7. The Thraken were coming with 35 warships. The numbers made Jack's stomach tight with worry. But he pushed the fear away. Fear would not help his people. Captain Lisa Ward walked up to him. She was his second in command. She carried a tablet with information. She told Jack that 70% of the civilians had been evacuated. The rest were hiding in underground shelters. About 3,000 colonists had volunteered to fight. They were farmers and scientists, not soldiers, but they wanted to defend their homes. Combined with the 500 trained Marines, they had a small army. Jack studied the map of the New Terra system. There was an asteroid field between the colony and the outer planets. Large rocks floating in space. Some of them were huge, over 1 kilometer wide. Miners were supposed to start working there next month. The asteroids had lots of heavy metals inside them. Jack looked at those rocks and started to smile. He had an idea. He called for Chief Engineer Greg Foster. Foster was an old man with gray hair and a face covered in grease. He had worked on ships for 30 years. When he appeared on the screen, he already looked tired. Before Jack could speak, Foster said he knew what Jack wanted. Something impossible with no time and few supplies. That was what commanders always wanted. Jack asked how many asteroids they could turn into weapons. Big rocks flying fast enough to destroy ships. Foster's eyes went wide. Then he started laughing. He said it was crazy but brilliant. Give him every shuttle they had, all the explosives, in 6 hours. He would give Jack the biggest shotgun blast the galaxy had ever seen. The next hours were busy. Foster and his teams worked on the asteroids. They attached engines and explosives to 17 massive rocks. Meanwhile, Kate Sullivan worked with the civilian defenders. They turned farms into fortresses. They dug trenches. They set up ambush points. Everyone knew the Thraken would try to land soldiers. They needed to be ready. Dr. Alan Price came to Jack with more good news. He was the head scientist on New Terra. He had discovered something interesting about the planet. New Terra had a very strong magnetic field, much stronger than Earth. He could use it to create interference that would mess up enemy targeting systems. It might not work, he admitted, but it was worth trying. The Thraken fleet arrived exactly when expected. Their ships came out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. Each ship was huge. Their flagship was 3 times bigger than the Valkyrie. The Thraken had spent centuries building their military. They looked unstoppable. Vortigern's face filled the communication screen. The big alien looked pleased with himself. He smiled like a predator. He told Jack that choosing to defend was brave but stupid. He offered one last chance. Surrender now. Lower the shields. Let the humans leave peacefully. It was his final offer. Jack stood straight. His voice was calm and cold. He told Vortigern to remember this moment. The Thraken had attacked first. Humans did not start this fight. Vortigern brought war to their homes. Whatever happened next was his fault. His responsibility. His mistake. Vortigern stopped smiling. He said Jack was a dead man talking. Very well, he said. Let us see what humans are made of. He ordered all his ships to attack. The Thraken fleet moved forward in perfect formation. Their weapons started charging. Energy built up in their guns. They looked like death itself moving through space. Jack waited. He watched the tactical display. The Thraken ships crossed an invisible line he had marked. Now they were in range. Now was the time. He gave the order to Chief Foster. Light them up. The 17 asteroids activated all at once. Explosives pushed them forward. They accelerated fast, getting faster every second. The huge rocks hurtled toward the Thraken formation. The enemy had only seconds to react. Their sensors detected the incoming threats, but Dr. Price's magnetic field made accurate targeting almost impossible. The Thraken ships fired wildly. They destroyed 3 asteroids. 14 got through. The impacts were devastating. Rocks the size of mountains hit the Thraken fleet at incredible speed. 5 ships were completely destroyed. 8 more were crippled and burning. The perfect formation broke apart. Ships scattered in panic. The mighty Thraken fleet was suddenly in chaos. Jack did not give them time to recover. He ordered all human ships to attack. Target the damaged vessels first. Kate coordinated with the ground forces. Everyone knew their jobs. It was time to show the Thraken what humans could do when they were cornered. The Valkyrie and the other 6 human ships dove into the fight. They were smaller and weaker than Thraken warships. But they were faster, more agile, and they were fighting for their families. Human pilots pushed their ships to the limit. They flew in ways that broke all the normal rules. They took risks that seemed insane, and somehow they survived. Lieutenant Sam Carter led the fighter wing. His voice came over the radio, excited and loud. He shouted that the big Thraken ships could not track the small human fighters. They were like elephants trying to swat flies. The comparison made Jack smile even in the middle of battle. On the ground, things were going just as well. Thraken dropships tried to land. They found themselves in a nightmare. The humans had prepared traps everywhere. Mines exploded under Thraken feet. Snipers fired from hidden positions. Ambushes came from unexpected directions. The colonists knew every inch of their land. The Thraken soldiers were strangers in a hostile place. Rachel Morgan was just a farmer. A week ago, she had never held a weapon. Now she commanded a group of civilians defending the northern settlement. She watched through binoculars as Thraken soldiers approached. They walked in formation, confident and organized. She waited until they were in the perfect position. Then she gave the order. Mining charges buried in the ground exploded all at once. The survivors found themselves trapped in crossfire. They never had a chance. Back in space, Captain Ward reported the damage. The human fleet was taking hits. They were bleeding. But they were giving worse than they got. For every shot the Thraken landed, the humans landed 3. The Thraken had numbers and power. But the humans had motivation. They were defending their homes. 4 hours into the battle, everything changed. Vortigern's confidence was gone. Half his fleet was destroyed or disabled. The humans were still fighting. They showed no signs of stopping, no signs of breaking. This was supposed to be a simple test. Instead, it had become a disaster. He opened a channel to Jack Morrison. His voice was different now, smaller, defeated. Vortigern said enough. He wanted to withdraw. The humans had proven their point. The test was over. He tried to sound reasonable, like this had all been a simple misunderstanding, like he had not started a war and killed hundreds of people. Jack's face was hard as stone. His voice was colder than space. He said no. Vortigern did not get to start a war and then walk away when it got difficult. He wanted to test humanity. Here was the test. Fight or run, but either way, remember this moment. Remember that he attacked peaceful colonists. Remember that farmers and scientists kicked his tail across the system. Vortigern's ship turned and began to retreat. His remaining fleet followed, broken and running. But Jack did not let them go easily. He ordered his ships to pursue them to the edge of the system. He wanted everyone in the galaxy to see what happened when someone picked a fight with humanity. He wanted the whole universe to watch the mighty Thraken fleet running away. When the Thraken finally jumped to faster than light speeds, they left behind 17 destroyed warships. They left behind their reputation for being invincible. They left behind the idea that they could bully anyone they wanted. As the battle ended, Jack felt the weight of it all. 2 human ships had been destroyed. 300 Marines were dead. 87 colonists had died defending their homes. Every death hurt. Every loss mattered, but they had won. Against terrible odds, against a stronger enemy, they had won. Kate approached him. Her face was tired but proud. She told Jack they were receiving messages from all over the galaxy. Everyone had watched the battle. The entire universe had seen what happened. The Galactic Council was calling for an emergency meeting. Everyone wanted to talk about the humans now. Jack nodded slowly. He thought about the Prophet's warning. Strike first and they will never stop. The Thraken had struck first. Now they understood what that really meant. But this was just the beginning. The Battle of New Terra was over. But Jack knew the war had only started. The Thraken would not give up after one defeat. They were too proud, too powerful, too used to winning. They would come back. And when they did, humanity would be ready. 3 months passed after the Battle of New Terra. The Thraken Empire was learning a hard lesson. Defeating humans in one battle was very different from defeating humans in a war. Admiral Lauren Hayes stood in the war room of the new carrier called Enterprise. She looked at reports that seemed impossible, but they were all true. The Thraken had attacked 3 more human colonies. Each time they expected easy victories. Each time they were wrong. The humans fought back with tricks and tactics that made no sense to Thraken commanders. Worse, the humans were not just defending anymore. Now they were attacking back. Jack Morrison's face appeared on the holographic display. He was still coordinating operations from New Terra. The colony had become the center of human military planning. Jack told Admiral Hayes that their scouts had found a Thraken supply depot at a place called Kragos Prime. It was far behind enemy lines. The Thraken thought it was safe. They thought humans could not reach it. Hayes smiled. She was a veteran of Earth's unification wars. She understood something important about human warfare. Humans did not care about lines on maps. Humans went wherever they needed to go. She told Jack to assemble a strike team. She wanted the attack done quietly and quickly. She wanted to show the Thraken that nowhere was safe. Captain Danny Brooks led the raid on Kragos Prime. He and his Special Forces team used captured Thraken technology to sneak in. They destroyed 6 months' worth of supplies. Then they escaped before reinforcements arrived. The message was clear. Humanity could strike anywhere, at any time. No place was too far. No target was too well protected. But the Thraken Empire was huge and powerful. Vortigern refused to accept defeat. He gathered his most experienced commanders for a meeting. He told them the humans fought like vermin. They scattered when confronted. Then they attacked from unexpected directions. The strategy needed to change. He ordered General Thax to lead a massive strike against Earth itself. Destroy the human homeworld and end the war. That was the plan. General Thax was old and scarred. He had fought in 100 battles. He studied the information about Earth's defenses. He told Vortigern that humans had fortified their home system heavily. At least 40 warships guarded it, plus extensive orbital defenses. A direct assault would cost many lives, many ships. Vortigern slammed his fist on the table. The cost did not matter. They must break the human will to fight. He ordered Thax to assemble their greatest fleet, 200 warships, the largest force the Thraken had ever gathered. They would show humanity the true power of the Thraken Empire. News of the planned attack reached human intelligence quickly. The Thraken had a problem they did not know about. Several species who were supposed to be Thraken allies actually liked the humans. They secretly shared information. The Lyrians especially had been helping humanity since the war began. Ambassador Chen Wei met with the Sara in a secure location on Earth. The crystal being's color shifted to show serious worry. She told Chen that the Thraken planned to strike Earth with everything they had, 200 ships, including their most powerful dreadnoughts. Vortigern believed that destroying Earth would end human resistance completely. Chen Wei looked thoughtful, not scared. She said Vortigern misunderstood humans completely. They were not fighting to protect Earth. They were fighting because the Thraken attacked them. Earth was home, yes, but humanity was bigger than one planet now. Still, she would rather not lose 10 billion people. She asked how much time they had. Thessara said 2 weeks. The fleet was assembling at Thraka Major, the Thraken military headquarters. Chen Wei smiled. 2 weeks was plenty of time. She thanked Thessara. She promised that the Lyrians would not be forgotten when the war ended. Then she called for an emergency meeting of the Human War Council. Jack Morrison, Admiral Hayes, and a dozen senior officers gathered around a holographic display. It showed the Thraken fleet assembling at Thraka Major, 200 ships. It looked impossible to fight. Kate Sullivan, who now commanded her own ship, said what everyone was thinking. Even with all their defenses, Earth would suffer massive casualties. Millions could die in the attack. Jack studied the display carefully. His tactical mind was working fast. He said they would not let the Thraken reach Earth. They would hit the enemy at Thraka Major while the fleet was still assembling. Hit them hard. Hit them first. Make them think twice about ever threatening human worlds again. Admiral Hayes looked doubtful. Thraka Major was the Thraken capital system, the most heavily defended location in their empire. Attacking them there meant fighting them at their strongest position. It seemed like suicide. Jack's eyes were hard and determined. Good, he said. Let them see what humans do to bullies. They would go for the throat. Attack the heart of the Thraken Empire. Show them that humans did not just defend, they struck back. The plan they made was crazy. 75 human ships would assault Thraka Major directly. They would target not just the assembling fleet, but also the orbital defense platforms and military bases. It was the largest offensive operation humanity had ever tried. It was also incredibly dangerous. Dr. Price helped them plan the attack. His team had been studying captured Thraken technology. They found a weakness in the Thraken shield systems. A specific type of electromagnetic pulse could shut down their defenses for about 45 seconds. It was not much time. But in space combat, 45 seconds could mean everything. Chief Foster equipped every ship with the new EMP weapons. Lieutenant Carter worked with the fighter pilots. They practiced the exact timing needed. Captain Brooks prepared special forces teams to board disabled Thraken ships and steal information. Everyone had a job. Everyone knew the risks. Before the fleet departed, Ambassador Chen Wei spoke to them. Her image was broadcast to every ship. She told them they were about to do the most dangerous thing in human history. The whole galaxy was watching. The Thraken thought they could intimidate humanity into submission. They thought threatening Earth would break the human spirit. They were completely wrong. She told the fleet to show the Thraken what humanity really meant. Show them that humans were not victims. They were the reckoning. The fleet jumped to faster than light speeds. They headed straight into the heart of the Thraken Empire. When they emerged at the edge of the Thraka Major system, every sensor lit up with warnings. The Thraken had detection systems everywhere. The entire system knew humans were coming. The whole Thraken military was mobilizing. Jack stood on the bridge of his flagship, a ship he had named Defiant. The tactical display filled with enemy contacts, 200 warships, 50 orbital defense platforms, countless support vessels. It was the largest concentration of military power the Thraken had ever assembled in one place. It looked impossible to defeat. Kate's voice came through the communication system. Vortigern was calling them. Jack told her to put him through. The Thraken commander appeared on the screen. His face showed fury and disbelief. He could not understand what he was seeing. Humans dared to attack Thraka Major? They dared to bring their tiny fleet to the Thraken capital. He said they had lost their minds. This was not bravery. This was suicide. Jack's voice was calm, almost casual. He asked Vortigern if he remembered what the prophet said. Strike first and humans will never stop. The Thrakens struck first. They attacked human colonies. They killed human families. Did Vortigern really think humans would just defend? Did he think they would not come for him? The prophet tried to warn him. Now he was going to understand why. Jack addressed all the human ships. This was Commander Morrison. Execute Operation Thunderstrike. Show them what happens when you wake the dragon. Every human ship surged forward. They activated their EMP weapons at the same time. A massive pulse swept across the entire Thraken formation. For 45 seconds, the mighty Thraken shields flickered and died. And in those 45 seconds, humanity showed the galaxy what they could do. Railguns fired. Missiles launched. Fighters swarmed through the gaps in Thraken defenses. Human ships that were weaker in direct combat proved devastating when their targets were vulnerable. The Thraken fleet, assembled to attack Earth, found itself fighting desperately just to survive. In their own home system, in their own capital, the Battle of Thraka Major lasted 6 hours. When it ended, the Thraken fleet was broken. Their orbital defenses were ruins. And most importantly, their confidence was destroyed. The most powerful military force in the galaxy had been bloodied in their own capital, by a species they had thought primitive just months ago. As the human fleet withdrew, Jack received a transmission. It was Kael'var, the old prophet. His voice was sad but not surprised. He said Jack had proven the prophecy correct. But he asked Jack to remember what he had said before. Show mercy when this was over. Do not become conquerors. Be liberators instead. Jack thought about all the deaths, all the sacrifices, all the pain. He nodded slowly. They would remember. But first they had to finish the war. 6 months into the war, the Galactic Council met again. The chamber looked the same, but everything else had changed. Jack Morrison stood at the podium where Ambassador Chen Wei had once defended Earth's peaceful intentions. This time he wore the uniform of an admiral. No one questioned his right to be there now. Vortigern was not there. The proud Thraken commander who started this war was gone. In his place sat a young officer named Crix. His manner was quiet and humble, very different from Vortigern's arrogance. The change spoke volumes about what the war had done to the Thraken Empire. The council leader acknowledged Jack's request to speak. Jack looked around the chamber. He met the eyes of representatives from dozens of species. Some looked afraid. Others looked impressed. A few looked openly friendly. The galaxy's attitude toward humanity had completely changed. Jack began to speak. He reminded them that 6 months ago, humanity came seeking friendship. Instead, they were threatened with war as a test of their worthiness. The Thraken Empire chose violence over peace. They struck first. And as the prophet warned, humans did not stop. But today, Jack said, he was not here to gloat or threaten. He was here to offer terms for ending the conflict. A surprised murmur went through the chamber. Crix looked up sharply. His face showed hope mixed with suspicion. He had not expected this. No one had expected this. Thessera, the Lyrian who had secretly helped humanity, spoke up. She asked why humans were offering terms. The humans were winning decisively. They had momentum, superior tactics, and the will to keep fighting. Why offer peace now when victory seemed certain? Jack's expression became serious. He said that winning and being right were different things. Yes, humanity could destroy the Thraken Empire. They had the momentum. They had the technology. They had the determination to do it. But that was not who they wanted to be. Earth had nearly destroyed itself learning about the cost of endless war. They did not want to repeat those mistakes. They would rather have former enemies as future friends than rule over ashes and bitterness. He turned to face Crix directly. Jack outlined humanity's terms. First, the Thraken Empire would withdraw all forces from human systems and recognize human sovereignty. Second, reparations would be paid for the colonies that were attacked. Third, and most important, Vortigern would stand trial for war crimes before an impartial galactic tribunal. Not human justice. Galactic justice. Let the galaxy judge what happened. Crick stood. His voice trembled slightly. He asked what guarantee the Thraken had that humanity would honor these terms. Humans had proven themselves fearsome warriors. How could the Thraken know that humans would not simply conquer them anyway once they were weakened? It was a fair question. Everyone wondered the same thing. Jack nodded. He understood the concern. He told them about Earth's history. Humanity had empires that conquered for glory. They had nations that fought for survival. They had committed terrible acts and achieved amazing things. But eventually, they learned something crucial. The only lasting victory was one where your former enemy became your friend. That was not weakness. That was the hardest kind of strength. Jack gestured to all the assembled delegates. He said the guarantee was this. These peace terms would be enforced by the Galactic Council, not by humans alone. He proposed a joint peacekeeping force. Multiple species, including both humans and Thraken, would monitor the borders. They would make sure both sides honored the treaty. Humanity was offering to be accountable to everyone. An elderly representative from a neutral species spoke up. His species was known for wisdom and fairness. He said Jack's proposal was unprecedented. But he had to ask the question everyone was thinking. Humanity's military had proven superior. Victory was within reach. Why show restraint? History suggested that winners rarely offered such generous terms. Jack's voice became softer, more personal. He said 387 human soldiers had died in this war. 87 colonists on New Terra were killed defending their homes. His friend Captain Lisa Ward had sacrificed her ship to save civilians. He had to tell her daughter why her mother was never coming home. Every death weighed on him. Everyone should have been prevented. He paused to gather himself. Jack continued. The Thraken had lost far more. Thousands of their soldiers, hundreds of their ships. They had families too. They had children who would grow up without parents because of this war. Yes, the Thraken started it. Yes, they were responsible. But continuing to kill them when there was an option to stop would make humans no better than the bullies they fought against. Kael'var, who had been watching silently, finally spoke. The ancient prophet's voice filled the chamber. He said Jack spoke the truth. The prophet had warned that humans would never stop if provoked. But he had also seen another future, one that depended on a single choice. This choice. Right now, humans could continue their war of revenge. They could crush the Thraken Empire and rule through fear, or they could do something rare in galactic history. Choose mercy from a position of strength. The prophet turned his ancient eyes to Jack. He told Jack that he remembered his request. Show mercy, not for the Thraken's sake, but for humanity's sake. Today, Jack was honoring that request. The galaxy would remember this choice forever. The council debated for hours. But the outcome was never really in doubt. The Thraken were desperate for peace. The other species were relieved that humanity was not seeking to replace the Thraken as the galaxy's dominant military power. The terms were accepted with only small changes. After the session ended, Crix approached Jack privately. The young Thraken officer's military bearing could not hide his relief. He told Jack that his people owed humanity a debt they could never fully repay. Vortigern's arrogance had brought disaster. Jack's mercy gave them a chance to rebuild. Jack offered his hand in the human gesture of peace. After a moment, Crix took it. Jack said everyone made mistakes. The question was whether they learned from them. He asked Crix to help build a better galaxy. That was how to repay the debt. Later, Jack met with his senior officers. Kate Sullivan had been promoted to captain after her actions at Thraka Major. She told Jack that some crew members were unhappy with the peace terms. They felt humanity should have pushed for total victory. They had lost friends in this war. They wanted the Thraken to pay more. Jack understood their feelings. He felt the same way sometimes. But he asked what total victory would mean. Occupying Thraken worlds, imposing human rule on billions of beings, creating an empire that would make them become the very thing they fought against. Admiral Hayes suggested something. The troops would follow Jack's lead. They trusted him, but they needed to understand why. She suggested letting them meet with Thraken soldiers during the peace process. Let them see that the beings they fought were people too, not monsters. It was a good idea. Over the next weeks, as the peace treaty was being written down officially, human and Thraken soldiers met in neutral places. The meetings were tense at first, but gradually understanding grew. Both sides had lost friends. Both sides had fought for what they believed was right. Both sides wanted the killing to stop. Lieutenant Sam Carter found himself sharing drinks with a Thraken pilot named Vex. They compared notes on flying tactics. They complained about their commanding officers. They discovered they had more in common than either expected. Two warriors from opposite sides finding common ground. Vex told Sam that humans fought in ways that made no sense. They took risks that should get them killed. But somehow they survived. Sam laughed.
He said humans were too stubborn to know when they were beaten.
Plus, they had a weird trait where they fought harder when things looked impossible. He thought it came from their evolution. The humans who gave up when things got tough did not survive. The crazy ones who kept trying did. Those were the ancestors of all modern humans. Vex's face arranged itself in what might have been a smile. That explained a lot, he said. Vortigern thought he was testing human strength. He did not realize he was giving them motivation. He created the very enemy he feared. As news of the peace treaty spread across human space, reactions were mixed but generally positive. The colonies that suffered attacks appreciated that their sacrifices led to lasting peace rather than endless revenge. Earth celebrated, though the celebrations were quiet out of respect for those who died. Rachel Morgan, the farmer who defended her home on New Terra, was interviewed by Galactic Media. She spoke for many humans. She said they did not want this war. The Thraken brought it to them. But now it was over and she was glad. Not because humans won, but because it was finished. She could plant crops again without worrying about warships overhead. Her children could play outside without fear. That was what victory really meant. Not domination, safety. The turning point of the war had not been a dramatic final battle. It had been a choice. Humanity chose to be remembered not for their capacity for violence, but for their capacity for wisdom. As Kelvar predicted, it was a choice that would define their place in the galaxy for generations. The prophet had been right about everything. Humans never stopped when attacked. But more importantly, they knew when to stop attacking. That wisdom, that restraint, that mercy from strength, was the rarest and most powerful thing of all. 5 years after the war ended, the galaxy looked completely different. Jack Morrison, now a senior admiral, stood on the observation deck of Unity Station. This massive platform orbited New Terra. 12 different species had built it together, including humans and Thraken. Below him, the blue and green planet turned slowly. The scars from the war were gone. New Terra had healed. Captain Crix approached with a datapad. The young Thraken officer had become one of Jack's closest friends and most trusted allies. Their friendship had been forged in peace rather than war. That made it stronger somehow. Crix told Jack that the ceremony was about to begin. Ambassador Chen and Prophet Kaelvar were already at the memorial site. Jack nodded and straightened his uniform. Today was the 5th anniversary of the Peace of New Terra. Representatives from across the galaxy had come to remember both the fallen and the friendship that grew from conflict. It was an important day. A day to honor the past and celebrate the future. The memorial was beautiful. A crystal structure reached toward the sky. Inside it were the names of every being who died in the war. Human and Thraken names together. A joint team of artists from both species had designed it. The memorial stood as a reminder. War was costly. Peace was valuable. Both lessons were written in crystal that would last forever. Kate Sullivan met Jack at the shuttle bay. She was captain of the heavy cruiser Endeavor now. Her face showed the same mixture of sadness and pride that Jack felt. They had both lost friends in the war, but they had also helped build something better from those losses, something worth the sacrifice. The ceremony began with silence. Thousands of beings from dozens of species stood together, their differences united in shared memory. When the silence ended, Ambassador Chen Wei stepped forward to speak. The elderly diplomat had become one of the most respected voices in galactic politics. Her wisdom helped solve countless problems over the past 5 years. Chen Wei spoke about the past. 5 years ago, they stood on the edge of terrible war. A choice was made to strike first. Humanity responded with determination and refusal to accept defeat. But then came a greater choice. The choice to end the violence. The choice to offer mercy. The choice to build rather than destroy. Those choices made all the difference. She gestured to the crowd. Human and Thraken veterans stood side by side. Former enemies, now friends. She talked about what they had built together. The Galactic Defense Fleet united former enemies to protect all species. The Joint Research Initiative combined human innovation with Thraken engineering and Lyrian science. The Cultural Exchange Program helped children learn that differences made life richer, not harder. This was the legacy of peace. When Chen finished, Kalvar moved to speak. The ancient prophet was now over 350 years old. His form was more frail than ever, but his presence still commanded respect and attention. Everyone listened when he spoke. Kalvar said he had lived through the rise and fall of empires. He had witnessed wars that changed the galaxy. He had seen prophecies fulfilled and broken, with the authority of age and vision both. He said what humanity accomplished was rare beyond measure, almost impossible. His 6 eyes swept the crowd. When he warned the Council 5 years ago, he spoke of humanity's capacity for endless pursuit. Strike first, he said, and they will never stop. He was right about that. But he saw another future too, one that depended on a choice. The choice to stop not because they could not continue, but because they chose not to. That second prophecy was the one that really mattered. Kalvar turned to face Jack. He said Jack and his species had shown the galaxy what real strength meant. Not the strength of weapons, though humans proved formidable in battle. Not the strength of will, though human determination was legendary. But the strength to choose mercy, the strength to build bridges, the strength to end violence rather than continue it. That was the rarest strength of all. When the formal ceremonies ended, something unexpected happened. Vex, the Thraken pilot who became friends with Sam Carter, stepped forward. He said several Thraken veterans wanted to speak. Jack nodded, curious. Vex and 3 other Thraken officers approached the memorial. Their body language showed unusual openness, unusual vulnerability. Vex spoke for all of them. He said they fought against humanity, believing they were testing primitives. They thought themselves superior. Their military invincible. Their cause just... They were wrong about everything. The humans defeated them not because they were stronger, but because they cared more. Every battle showed humans fighting not for conquest but for survival. For home. For each other. His voice grew thick with emotion. When humans won, when they had every right to destroy the Thraken, they offered peace instead. Today the Thraken stood not as conquered subjects but as equals, as friends. They had learned more from humanity's mercy than they ever learned from Thraken's strength. They would carry that lesson forward forever. The moment moved many in the crowd to tears. Signing treaties was one thing. Political speeches were expected. But seeing former soldiers acknowledge their mistakes and embrace a better future was something else. It was real. It was honest. It was healing. After the ceremony, Jack walked through the memorial gardens with Dr. Alan Price. The physicist had continued his work on New Terra. He had grown philosophical in his later years. He told Jack he had been thinking about the war and what it revealed. Humans were not the most technologically advanced species. The Lyrians had better sensors. The Thraken had more powerful weapons. But humans had something else. They had perspective. Jack asked what he meant. Price gestured at the memorial. Most species in the galaxy evolved to dominance easily. They were apex predators or had few natural threats. Humanity evolved in competition with everything. Predators wanted to eat them. Diseases wanted to kill them. Environmental changes threatened to wipe them out. Humans learned to cooperate because they had to. They learned to innovate because they had no choice. And most importantly, they learned that survival sometimes meant changing direction, not just pushing harder. Price smiled. The Thraken wanted to test human strength. They got their answer, but not the one they expected. They found out that true strength included knowing when to stop fighting. That was the lesson that changed everything. That evening, Jack attended a private dinner with his closest friends and colleagues. Kate Sullivan raised a glass to toast. She spoke to absent friends, to those who gave everything so the living could be there today. She asked that their sacrifice be honored by building a galaxy worthy of their memory. Everyone echoed the toast. The table included both humans and several Thraken officers who had become part of their circle. As the evening continued, conversation turned to the future. The Galactic Defense Fleet was exploring unknown regions of space. The Joint Research Initiative was making breakthrough discoveries. Cultural exchanges were creating art, literature, and music that drew from multiple traditions. The galaxy was growing together. Rachel Morgan shared news that made everyone smile. The farmer from New Terra who had defended her home now had interesting news. Her daughter was marrying a Thraken engineer next month. They met while he helped rebuild settlements damaged in the war. 5 years ago, she would have thought it impossible. Now it felt natural, normal. Right. Crix asked Jack a question he had wanted to ask for years. During the war, did Jack ever doubt? Did he ever think the cost was too high? That surrender might have been wiser? It was an honest question that deserved an honest answer. Jack thought carefully before answering. Every single day, he said. Every casualty report, every destroyed ship, every grieving family. He questioned whether they were doing the right thing. But humans had a phrase, peace through strength. It meant that sometimes the only way to get lasting peace was to show that attacking you cost more than negotiating with you. The Thraken needed to learn that lesson. Unfortunately, the only way to teach it was through conflict. He continued. But once that lesson was learned, continuing to fight would have been wrong. That was why they offered peace terms. Why they chose the harder path of reconciliation over the easier path of revenge. Because ultimately, people were not defined by how hard they could hit, but by when they chose to stop hitting and extend a hand instead. As guests began to leave, Jack found himself alone with Ambassador Chen Wei. The old diplomat had been his mentor throughout the war and peace. She told Jack he did well today. His father would have been proud. Jack's father died during Earth's unification wars, fighting to end the kind of conflict that almost consumed the galaxy. Jack said he hoped so. He tried to remember what his father taught him. That fighting was sometimes necessary, but should never be the first choice or the only option. It was a tool, not a solution. Chen Wei smiled. Jack had taught that lesson to an entire galaxy now. The prophet warned that humans would never stop if struck first. He was right. But Jack showed them something equally important. That humans also knew how to start something new. How to build instead of destroy. How to unite instead of divide. She pointed toward the window where New Terra gleamed in space. 5 years ago, this world was a battlefield. Today, it was a symbol of cooperation and hope. That transformation was humanity's real victory. Not the battles they won, but the peace they built afterward. Later that 10 years after the war, the galaxy continued to change in ways that still surprised everyone. The human presence had grown from 7 small colonies to over 50 thriving worlds. But the real change was not in numbers. It was in relationships, in understanding, in the new reality that former enemies could truly become friends. Jack Morrison was older now. Gray touched his hair at the temples. Lines marked his face, each one telling a story of decisions made and responsibilities carried. He had retired from active military service 2 years ago. Now he served as an advisor to the Galactic Council. His main job was helping resolve conflicts before they became wars. He was good at it. He understood both the cost of fighting and the value of peace. He sat in his office on Unity Station, reviewing reports from across the galaxy. 2 species were having a border dispute. Nothing serious yet, but tensions were rising. Jack had seen this pattern before. Small disagreements could grow into big problems if no one addressed them early. He made notes about potential solutions. Tomorrow he would meet with representatives from both sides. A knock on his door interrupted his work. Crix entered without waiting for permission. They were past such formalities. The Thraken officer, now a general in the Galactic Defense Fleet, carried 2 cups of coffee. He had learned to love the human beverage. He said it kept him awake during long strategy meetings. Crix sat down and handed Jack one of the cups. He asked if Jack remembered the day they first met. At the council, right after the Battle of New Terra, Crix had been terrified, ashamed of what his people had done, certain that humans would seek revenge. Instead, Jack offered friendship. That memory still amazed him. Jack smiled. He remembered. He also remembered thinking that Crix looked young and scared. Not like the enemy, just like a soldier who wanted the killing to stop. That made all the difference. When you saw the person instead of the uniform, peace became possible. They talked about the current border dispute. Crix had ideas about how to solve it. His suggestions showed the influence of both Thraken strategic thinking and human flexibility. It was a good combination. Jack made more notes. Together, they worked out a proposal that both sides might accept. This was how peace worked, not through grand gestures but through patient problem-solving, day after day, issue after issue. Later that week, Kate Sullivan visited Unity Station. She commanded a deep space exploration fleet now. Her ships traveled farther than anyone had gone before, mapping unknown regions and making first contact with new species. It was dangerous work, but Kate loved it. She always did prefer action to sitting behind a desk. Over dinner, Kate told Jack about her latest discovery. They found a species that was just beginning to develop space travel, very similar to where humanity was 15 years ago. She asked Jack to help her write a first contact protocol. How should they approach this new species? What lessons from humanity's own experience could guide them? Jack thought about it. The biggest lesson was simple. Approach with respect. Do not assume anything. Every species was different. They had their own history, their own values, their own fears. The key was to listen more than talk, to offer help without demanding anything in return, to give them time to adjust to the reality that they were not alone in the universe. Kate nodded. That made sense. She said something else too. When they found this new species, her crew included both humans and Thraken officers, former enemies working together as friends. That fact would send a powerful message to any new species. It showed that differences did not have to mean conflict. Competition did not have to mean war. The next day, Jack received an unexpected visitor. Kelvar, the ancient prophet, had come to Unity Station. The Viridian was incredibly old now. His movements were slow and painful. His wings barely functioned, but his 6 eyes were still sharp. His mind still worked perfectly. Jack helped him to a comfortable chair and offered refreshments. Kelvar said he was dying. Not immediately, but soon. Maybe a few months. He wanted to see Jack before the end. To talk about what happened. About the prophecy and how it played out. About the choices that changed everything. Jack felt a sadness at this news. The old prophet had been right about so much. His warnings had tried to prevent the war. When they failed, his wisdom helped guide the peace. Jack asked what Kelvar wanted to talk about. What was still on his mind after all these years? The prophet said he wanted to explain something about prophecy, about what he really saw all those years ago. When he warned the council, he did not just see one future. He saw many possible futures. In most of them, the war happened. Humanity was attacked. And in every single one of those timelines, humans never stopped fighting. They won. They always won. That part of the prophecy was certain. But what happened after victory was not certain. In some futures, humans became conquerors. Their trauma from being attacked made them aggressive. They dominated the galaxy through fear. Those futures were dark, full of more wars and more suffering. In other futures, humans chose differently. They offered peace, built bridges, used their strength to protect rather than dominate. Those futures were bright. Kelvar's eyes focused on Jack intently. He said the moment of choice came when Jack stood before the council and offered terms. That moment decided which future became real. Jack chose wisdom over vengeance, mercy over domination. That choice created the bright future, the future they now lived in. Jack felt humbled by this. He said it was not just his choice. Many people contributed. Ambassador Chen Wei taught him about diplomacy. Captain Ward showed him the cost of war. The colonists of New Terra demonstrated courage. Even Vortigern played a role, though probably not the one he intended. Everyone's choices mattered. Kelvar nodded. That was true, but someone had to make the final decision. Someone had to stand before the galaxy and say that winning was not enough, that being right mattered more than being strong. Jack did that. The prophet wanted Jack to know that he changed the course of galactic history, not through war but through the courage to end it. Before he left, Kelvar gave Jack one more piece of wisdom. He said humanity's journey was just beginning. They would face more challenges, more difficult choices. But they had established something important. They showed that strength without wisdom led to disaster, that winning without mercy created only more enemies. That true power came from knowing when to fight and when to extend a hand in friendship. A month after Kelvar's visit, news came that the old prophet had died peacefully in his sleep. The entire galaxy mourned. His funeral was attended by thousands of beings from hundreds of species. Humans and Thraken stood together as honor guards. It seemed fitting. The prophet who warned about their conflict now brought them together in shared grief and respect. At the funeral, Jack was asked to speak. He stood before the assembled crowd and talked about prophecy, about wisdom, about the choices that defined civilizations. He said Kael'var saw many possible futures, some dark, some bright, but seeing the future was not enough. Someone still had to make it real. The prophet showed the paths. Others had to choose which one to walk. Jack said that humanity chose the path of wisdom, not because they were better than other species, but because they learned from their own history. Earth nearly destroyed itself in wars. Billions died before humans finally understood that cooperation worked better than conflict. That hard lesson, bought with terrible cost, prepared humanity for their role in the galaxy. Years continued to pass. The galaxy grew more peaceful, though not perfect. Conflicts still happened, but now there were systems in place to resolve them. The Galactic Defense Fleet, commanded jointly by multiple species, prevented wars before they started. The Cultural Exchange Program helped new generations understand each other. The Joint Research Initiative solved problems that no single species could handle alone. Rachel Morgan's daughter married her Thraken engineer. Their wedding became a symbol of the new galaxy. Two species that had tried to destroy each other now joined in family. Their children, when they came, would grow up knowing both cultures, both histories, both languages. They would be living proof that the future was not limited by the past. Jack eventually wrote a book about the war and the peace that followed. He called it Strike First. The title referred to Kael'var's prophecy, but also to a different kind of striking first. Be first to offer peace, first to extend friendship, first to choose wisdom over vengeance. That kind of striking first changed everything. The book became required reading in schools across dozens of worlds. Young people of many species learned about the war, about the choices made, about the reasons why peace was better than victory. They learned that strength without wisdom was dangerous, that winning without mercy created only more problems, that the hardest battles were often fought not with weapons, but with the courage to put weapons down. On his final visit to New Terra before his own retirement from public life, Jack stood at the memorial one more time. The crystal structure still gleamed in the sunlight. The names of the fallen were still there, human and Thraken together. He placed his hand on the cool crystal and thought about all the people who gave their lives. Captain Ward, lieutenant soldiers, colonists, warriors from both sides. Their sacrifice bought this peace. Their deaths taught the living about the cost of war.